If you don't think something's strong enough, it needs to go. Like, if you think something needs to be better, it needs to be better.
What if the bad screenplays taught you?
Oh, wow. Get to the point. When you read these screenplays, and if I don't know what your story's about, I need something that latch on to, something to intrigue me, whether that's a character, whether that's a storyline, something that makes me want to keep reading. And so that's why usually your inciting incident is in the first 10 minutes of something. And it used to be 10 minutes, and now people have moved it up a lot, like something crazy or can happen in the first 5 minutes. People like Narc made a huge impact when it came out a long time ago, because they had that chase scene, handheld chase scene right in the beginning of the movie, and it literally happened within the first 3 minutes of the movie, and it was an independent film that blew up. I don't know if you know what that movie was, but and it's because on the page it's not as exciting in a script, but still, if you can write something that captures your audience, that makes them want to keep going, I think that's the number one thing. I think that's what they taught me, was that you need an inciting incident soon. You need to capture people's attention soon. Also, I think reading stuff, you realize right away when you read a lot, what is the point of the scene? What is the reason for the scene? And there has to be one, whether it's even regular dialogue to get to know somebody, there's still a reason, that we want to feel like you really know this person, or there has to be a reason behind it, or why is it on the page? And sometimes the bad ones, you'd be like, you don't need this character, you don't need this thing, cut the fat, just because you wrote it doesn't mean it's good. So go in there and figure out what you don't need and cut it out, Get to the core of what your story is and tell that story. You only have 2 hours, or an hour and a half, more like, even better. So what is the core of your story? What are the themes to your story? What story do you want to tell? And if you're telling a side story that's not as good, get rid of it. Sometimes people have B and C stories, but they have to be done really well and fast to have those other stories, or they got to be supporting the main theme. So writing a screenplay, you better rewrite usually, to make sure it's better, get feedback. Writing a screenplay is the best part about that, I think, is that you're at a stage where all you have to do is retype, delete and retype. It's much harder to make changes once you've filmed it. It's much harder to make changes in post. If you don't like a scene, I mean, what are you going to do? As to where you can hand a screenplay to so many people that are good at writing screenplays, and they can give you feedback, and you might agree with it or you might not. But if you give it to 10 different people and you're looking for feedback, you could probably make that screenplay better, as long as you know what story you're telling. And that's another thing. You can't get feedback if you don't know what story you're trying to tell. The feedback will be pointless. You don't even know what you're doing yet. Make sure you've done enough rewrites. You've got your screenplay where you want it to be before you hand it to other people. Because now you're going to be telling their voice, not your voice. And so you have to tell your voice and your story. And when you feel you've nailed it, that's when you go out for feedback. And getting good notes is very hard to come by. There's only a few people that I know that have ever given me good notes. But when you get someone that gives you good notes and knows good stories, their notes come back and you might agree with every single one of them, and you're like, oh yeah. But I've learned to trust my gut more too. If you don't think something's strong enough, it needs to go. If you think something needs to be better, it needs to be better. There is no excuses in this industry if you want to try to make it to the top levels, because there's 1,000 people making Dune, thousands. Usually nothing's going to be bad because it's gone through so many eyes, so many people's opinions to make it better. And you just have a screenplay, so it can change as many times as you want. And that's the good part, about the screenplay process, is rewrite. Costs nothing.
It sounds like that's very important to you, and that is that the scene does not drag, both visually, directionally in terms of where the actors are going and dialogue? It's very important to you that it moves along at a fast pace?
100%. I think I'm really admired to certain films, like Tarantino will have a 11-minute scene and somehow we're entertained. I think a lot of that has to do with finding these amazing actors that just, some people just have so much gravitas, you can put them on screen and say anything and you almost want to watch, you know. But for the rest of us, shorter is easier. I mean, and that's just the truth. So cut the fat. Or, you know, if you don't want to cut it and you have a scene that's long and you want it to be long, know where your cuts are in editing so that you can shorten it if you need to, you know. And usually WALLY Got Wasted, we shortened scenes. You know, Alex Soul acted a Russian roulette scene in WALLY Got Wasted, and it was a very emotional, funny scene, but it was longer. It was longer than it ended up in the movie. I had to cut certain things. And he was upset that I had to cut certain things, but it was just too long. As much as it was entertaining and good, it was still too long, you know? And so I think that's one of the hardest things for filmmakers is usually to look at their own stuff and to realize just constantly sit there and go, am I getting bored? Am I getting bored? Am I getting bored? And you got to watch your film in a lot of different ways. You know, watch it for color, watch it for sound, you know. But watching it just to get bored, I think, is almost a talent for certain people and certain filmmakers. It's crazy because if you're a filmmaker and you get bored easily, if you're just a person that gets bored easily, it usually will help you make films. Because your personal opinion is boring, so you'll move faster, you know. And in the world of ADD that we have, you moving things along and moving the camera, moving locations, having more interesting backgrounds, all that stuff makes things more interesting to watch. And so you got to think about that, you know.
But I thought that scene did not drag, so I don't know how much you cut out of the Russian roulette scene. But I thought it was, we also know Alex and love watching him, so it was great to see him there. But I felt that the scene, even had I not known him, was compelling, you know, because there was all this intensity and you didn't know what was going to happen. So.
It's a very long scene. We chop it up. I mean, that's one way that we broke it up a little bit, you know. When I felt like we were in that room too long, I think it's almost it might be a 9-minute scene. It's a long scene for a movie to be in one room. And thank you that you said it's good, but we did break it up. I think we used 4 minutes and then 5 minutes, something along those lines. I can't remember the exact numbers on it, but he killed it. And it's a scene that is high intensity and entertaining, and most people actually talk about that Russian roulette scene when they talk about the movie. They go, that iconic kind of scene. And that's why it was written. It was written, I wrote that scene for J.K. Simmons. I didn't write it for Alex. And J.K. couldn't do it, and so we brought Alex Soul in to kill it, and he did kill it.